What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and today we are going to be talking about Trails of Cold Steel 3 because I just finished it yesterday. I think it's been less than 24 hours, and honestly I should have done this with all the other game reviews, but I want to kind of talk about it while it's fresh in my mind and not let it sit for a couple weeks because then I tend to forget things. So, before we get into it, I do want to say Trails of Cold Steel 4 comes out on October 27th, and what I plan to do is, I'm not 100% sure yet, but there will be a playthrough on my channel regardless. You know, whether it gets good views or not, I want to put this on my channel just to kind of have it there. Because a lot of people have been asked, they want to see, you know, my reactions to things and all that kind of stuff. So I will be doing that. My first thought is to either do a live stream, and then I will edit the live stream to cut out like the meaningless battles and upload it as like a video series later. Or I'll just upload it as a video series in general. I'll probably see how the first live stream goes, see if anyone comes out, but if there's like, you know, 2 or 3 people coming to the live streams, I might just, you know, do it in video form, because videos do tend to do better, especially since they're shorter. But enough about that, so we're going to talk about Trails of Cold Steel 3, and oh my, okay, first of all, spoilers. I will be talking about spoilers, which really shouldn't be a problem, because if you're a fan of the series, you've probably played it when it came out like a year ago. But, oh my god, that cliffhanger. I could not imagine, you know, either living in Japan back in, what was it, 2016, 2017 when it first came out? I think it was 2017, and then Cold Steel 4 came out in 2018 in Japan. Or just playing it in English like a year ago and then being like, seeing that cliffhanger, you know, Osborn's just holding up Rean by the throat, and then it just cuts to credits. That's all you get. We see, which is insane to me, all the stuff that kind of happens in that last hour of the game. You know, the Courageous shows up. I'm going to go into all the other stuff, but I got to talk about the stuff that's fresh in my mind, like right now. The Courageous shows up with Victor Arcade, Olivier, and Toval. That gets blown up to hell, which, I mean, you would expect, because all the technological geniuses kind of worked on this stuff are like the bad guys. So it obviously makes sense that that would be something that would happen. And obviously if I'm right or wrong about stuff, don't correct me, because I'll find out when I play the future games. I highly doubt that those 3 are dead, because they're such big characters to be killed in such a throwaway kind of manner. But it was still like shocking to see in the moment. And then even, you know, even crazier than that, well, maybe not even crazier, but just as crazy as that was, you know, I was not expecting, it was really good for her arc, because she said, you know, Millium had said, you know, before any of this even started, you know, when it comes between, you know, Chancellor Osborn and Class 7, she's gonna choose Class 7. Even though at first when we go down, you know, into the Grawl of Erebos, it seems like she's, you know, fighting alongside the Ironbloods against us. She does end up making the ultimate sacrifice for Altina, which is going to be good for Altina's arc in Cold Steel 4, I'm sure. You know, just seeing Millium's chest get slashed open was horrifying to see. You see Jusis, I don't even know how you would say it in English, get, like, super upset, because obviously he sees her as, like, I would say either a daughter or, like, a little sister kind of figure. And, you know, you see it a lot in Cold Steel 3 where, you know, he's always wanting to make sure that she's, like, staying out of trouble, that she's safe, even though he has this kind of, like, oh, I don't really care about you attitude, but I actually really do. So there is that. And then Rean went complete, you know, like, Naruto Kyuubi mode, seeing Millium die, and then I don't know what this, like, extra power Rean has, obviously, because it's the first time we've seen it, but his eyes, like, you know, were completely, like, red and black, and he looked like a monster, and he was just, you know, slashing away at the dragon, you know, until it just completely disappeared, and he just had no control over himself, which was pretty crazy, which I've seen him look like that before, because I had seen the promotional stuff for Cold Steel 4 before I even played Cold Steel 3, so when I saw it, I wasn't like, oh my god, you know, I did not expect this was happening, but I still don't know what it is, or I'm guessing it's just like, kind of like how in Cold Steel 2, when you go to Ymir, and Ymir gets attacked and Rean sees his father laying on the ground, he kind of loses it for a minute and takes out all those Jaegers that came to attack. So I'm assuming it's an emotion-based thing where, you know, if something is too much, he just literally cannot handle it and he goes absolutely batshit. But yeah, so I think that's all I want to say about the final kind of air. By the way, Ali says, I'm using air quotations when I say father because as far as I'm concerned, he's not. He's a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit, just like Osborn. Hopefully we get to kill both of them in Cold Steel 4. Okay, so enough about that. Let's kind of backtrack and talk about all the characters here. So initially when I was looking at Cold Steel, when I was, you know, going through, I didn't really look at Cold Steel 3 too much when I played Cold Steel 2 because I knew after Cold Steel 2 I was going to go back and play the 5 games that came before Cold Steel. You know, the Sky Trilogy and the Crossbell arc. So I didn't really look too deep into it, but once I started to look at it, I'm not someone who, when you're playing a franchise or watching a franchise, I am someone who will always like the original cast more than characters who get added later on. So I looked at Yuna, Muse, Ash, Kurt, Altina kinda, but I already knew her because she's in Cold Steel 2. I don't remember if I don't think she was in Cold Steel 1. I think it was just Cold Steel 2. She might have been in Cold Steel 1. It's been a 3-month journey since I started playing the Trails game, so all my stuff is kind of blending together. But for those 4, you know, not counting Altina because she's technically a past character, I wasn't sure if I was going to like them because I'm like, okay, it's kind of like these new characters. Obviously, it's because Rean's an instructor now, and he has to teach his class, so these are going to be his students. Which is funny because, like, the first half of the game, you don't even have all the students. You literally have, like, you have Yuna, Kurt, and Altina. Muse and Ash don't even join you until, like, I think, like, there's 4 chapters and there's a final chapter. I think Muse and Ash don't even join you until, like, chapter 3, I believe. Like, fully join your class. Like, they get in the way during chapter 2 a bit, but I think chapter 3 is when they finally are, like, fully, like, put into Rean's class. But yeah, I really wasn't sure if I was gonna like them, and even now, I think they're decent. I think they're good. You know, Yuna's kind of animosity towards Rean, I felt was kind of stupid. It was like, basically, she was too shy to admit that she was happy he had saved her, so she just was a total dick to him. I didn't really understand that whole thing, because it's like, I don't know. I felt that was kind of weird. You know, it's like, the whole time I thought he had done something horrible, or it was because he was one of the ones who basically helped take over Crossbell or something like that, but no, it was just like, oh, you saved me, so I'm too embarrassed to admit that I'm happy, so I'm gonna be a dick. There's also, Muse, I still don't understand fully. I understand that she has some kind of ties to the witches, but it wasn't fully explained in Cold Steel 3. Like, we know she obviously has some magical powers, because there was one scene where she had frozen Rean with some, like, powers, and she was gonna, like, try and kiss him or whatever to try and, like, steal. So, I don't know if she was gonna steal some power or what she was gonna do, but it's clear she's not just, you know... And we already know that she is, Lady Muriel. She is a, Cayenne. You know, that's revealed to us, but obviously Rean and the rest of the class don't know that yet. I'm sure that'll get revealed at some point in Cold Steel 4. I don't really have too much thoughts on her character. I feel like her sexual tension towards her teacher is a bit much at times. You know, it can be funny from time to time, but I feel like, and it died down towards the end of the game. I feel like, you know, chapter 4 and the final chapter, it really kind of died down. You really got to see more of her character, but like the first 3 chapters, anytime she's on screen, it's like she's horny as hell for Rean. I don't know if that's an act. It probably is. For the most part, coping mechanism, kind of like Zelos does in Tales of Symphonia, but who knows. Kurt. I think Kurt is a overall solid character. I feel like his kind of arc where he's like kind of struggling with his sword style, because most of the time being a Vander, you have like this giant sword or giant weapon, You know, you look at someone like Mueller, he's got a very kind of like big, strong build, whereas Kurt is kind of a more skinny kid, and probably won't fill out as much as Mueller does. So he has to rely on dual blades. But he obviously has this struggle with, like, you know, there aren't many people who are Vanders that work with dual blades, so he kind of has this kind of like inner crisis with that. I don't think his arc was anything too insane, and I'm sure we'll get more of it in Cold Steel 4, but for what it was, I think it was solid. Ash, I did not like Ash at first, at all. You know, he just, I knew he was going to be something, you know, important to the story. You know, the moment he was on screen, I was like, well, especially since they always do, with Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 3, they do this, like, prologue thing, where it's, like, halfway or more through the game, you play, like, this one scene, and then it's like, oh, like, 6 months later. So I knew he was going to be part of the class, obviously, but I wasn't aware, I don't even know how to go about this. The fact that he is a child from Hamel, the third child, or third survivor, you know, obviously the other two being Lei, or Lo, I guess you would say it in English, but in Japanese they always said Lei, so I just say Lei. And Joshua. So those two and Ash are the three surviving children from Hamel. Which, speaking of, off track a little bit, you get to go to Hamel in Chapter 1, and oh my god, when the OST played, you know, from the Sky trilogy from Hamel, you know, like we get like a remastered version of the Hamel music, I literally started crying. I'm not even kidding. I know I had a lot of people saying they wished I had streamed Cold Steel 3 to see my reaction to that, because it probably would have been 30 minutes just me sitting there quiet, because I wouldn't have known how to even deal with that. I will say that I did find it kind of odd that we had Hamel as such a strong story point, but yet we didn't actually see Joshua at all during the game, which obviously they point out Estelle and Joshua can't come into the country right now because they are the children of Cassius, and basically the Erebonian Empire doesn't want to see them as a threat to kind of topple what they're doing. But I already knew they're going to be, I know them as well as Lloyd are going to be in Cold Steel 4. I mean, you know, you see that kind of stuff when you start playing these games. So it'll be cool to see what they kind of do there. But back to Ash. I felt like his story, you know, for the first part of the game, I was kind of like, okay, you know, he just seems like this punk. Okay, we go to his hometown. We see that he had a mother who was basically, I don't even know how to like word this. She was basically a nighttime kind of worker, if you get my meaning. And you know, it was clear that his mother, you know, obviously, you know, just kind of picked him up off the streets and took care of him, because obviously his family in Hamel was slaughtered. Which I'm actually curious if she even knew that he was from Hamel. Like, I wonder if he ever actually confided that in her, but, you know, maybe we'll learn later whether or not he did or not. So you feel bad for him there. It's like, okay, this woman who raised him, you know, at least tried to raise him right. And then once you get the Hamel story, because there's not really any kind of indication. I'm like trying to, I guess you could say there kind of was, because when you go to Hamel for the first time, he does show up to kind of help fight against Shirley and the other people in Ouroboros. But at the same time, there's nothing he really does, like, acting-wise, that makes it seem like this is a hard place for him to be. He does this thing, you know, throughout the game where he's covering his eye, and we really don't know until towards the end of the game, like, what that even means. And then you find out it's some kind of, like, curse. I think they said it was, like, it's like a curse that basically whispers in people's ears telling them what to do, and I guess that curse was embedded in his eye once he saw the tragedy of Hamel, you know, firsthand, being one of the survivors. And it was just one of those things where until he exacted his revenge on somebody because of it, the curse would, stay within him, which, eventually he did shoot Emperor Eugent, Cedric's and Oliver's father. Yeah, so his arc was very interesting. They kind of leave it off, kind of open-ended. It's going to be like Cold Steel 2, where I think all the characters are going to be scattered in the beginning, and you're going to have to kind of get everyone back together, because there's just going to be a giant war going on. Because once you defeat the Dark Dragon, this miasma, which was obviously part of Osborn's plan, like everything that happens in this franchise, there's this miasma that covers all of Erebonia and just starts making people violent towards each other. It kind of reminds me in Tales of Rebirth, when you finish the first arc, there's this whole thing that basically makes all the Gajamas, for those who know Tales of Rebirth, you'll know what I'm talking about, violent towards the humans. And it's kind of a similar thing there, except that all humans are just becoming more hostile towards each other. Except it seems like people who are more, what's the word? I was going to say perceptible. That's not really a word that I want to use. But they can perceive what's going on better. Like, they obviously are like, okay, this is going on. I'm not going to give in to this, fleeting anger or whatever. And then Altina was kind of, in the first 2 chapters, it was just kind of like, she's trying to learn what it means to be human, because obviously her and Millium are just created beings. They're not actual humans, even though their physical biology is that basically identical of a human. Their emotions are something that they have to get over time. Millium was always happy in Cold Steel 1 and 2, but you don't really see her express any other emotion besides that until the end of Cold Steel 2, where she starts crying and she doesn't even understand why she's crying, and that was her learning what it means to have emotions, besides the one that was basically programmed into her. Same thing with Altina. This game is a kind of journey for her to kind of learn that, which I thought was pretty cool, and you really don't see the true growth of that until the final chapter, which was really cool, because then you really see her kind of like, she was getting ready to sacrifice herself to become, the sword for Reen, but then Millium basically smacks her out of the way and is like, nope, I'm doing it. Which obviously means they have to die in order to create that sword, which was, once again, like I mentioned at the beginning, very sad. I almost sound like I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Let's talk about some of the... my main point I was going at with those characters is that I wasn't sure I was going to like the new Class 7, and I definitely still don't like them as much as the old, but I do think they are a decent addition, and I do think it'll be cool to see what they do, because all of them now have an opportunity to basically save the instructor that taught them everything that he knew. Because Reen seems like he's going to not only be someone who is very depressed in this next game, but also somebody who needs help from his friends. The original Class 7 was great to see again. Definitely, Elliot is still one of my favorites. I love his new kind of like style. He's going... I'm not going to go over everyone, because we'll be here for an hour. But, I feel like every returning Class 7 character had a cool little thing that was going on. Fee became a Bracer. Sarah went back to being a Bracer. Which, Fee's arc was kind of cool, we still don't know why. And I'm going to get to him in a second. But we still don't know why people like, like Zephyr's leader, the Jaeger King, or Crow, for example, or Azure Siegfried, as he is for most of this game, are even alive again. We know it obviously has some kind of thing to do with the technology of the gnomes, but there's nothing in the game that actually tells us how they were brought back, which, like I said, another thing we'll probably find out in Cold Steel 4. Having Crow back was definitely interesting. I've already seen artwork on Hajimari, so I knew he was going to be back. But I obviously didn't know to what extent, and I'm still just like, it's kind of funny, because it's like literally in the last like 5 minutes before the credits roll, his mask snaps. He's like, why'd I have to remember of all times now? And he basically jumps down to stop Rean from killing Osborn for whatever reason. I don't know why he would want to stop. I guess he just wanted to stop Rean in general because Rean was going all berserk. But I guess he does retain everything that happened while he was Azure Siegfried as well. Because otherwise, I don't think he would even know what's going on, but he was able to act almost immediately. I want to talk about some other... It was actually very interesting, you know, going from the Crossbell arc to Cold Steel 3, because I was already so well acquainted with Randy that seeing Randy almost immediately again was really cool, and you could definitely tell he did also have some kind of... I don't think he was doing it intentionally, but he did have some animosity towards Rean. You know, because Rean is from the Empire, and Rean is the Ashen Chevalier, and Rean was also someone who beat up his friend, you know, beat up Lloyd at the end of Cold Steel 2, so it was understandable that, you know, Randy might be not Rean's biggest supporter, but they do eventually bond, and, you know, they do become close, which is really cool. I hope to see the same thing with, like, some of the other, you know, when Lloyd, because Lloyd was technically in this game. In Chapter 2, when you're dealing with the whole Crossbell stuff, everyone except for Tio and Randy from the Special Support section were basically being kept on Michelin, you know, in what was called a birdcage, basically a prison, because the Empire didn't want them interfering with everything that was going on. Which I still don't understand why they let them out once we dealt with the threat. I don't know what the point was of keeping them locked up, but oh well. But you do get this quick scene of, you know, Lloyd standing, when they're heading back to, you know, the school. Rean looks out the window, he sees Lloyd there. Lloyd puts out his fist, kind of like they were doing like an air fist bump, and Rean does it back. That was kind of cool. That's kind of like their first kind of way of, like, I guess, burying the hatchet of the fight that they had, you know, like a year and a half ago. But I think I'm now just rambling on different story points that I really liked. I think overall it was a solid game. It was weird going back to kind of the school setting, and, you know, it does get kind of tedious at times where it's just like, okay, you know, time for the school day, time to go point A to point B. I don't mind the school setting too much, and I'm glad there's not as many chapters doing school stuff as there was in Cold Steel 1. I feel like it got very tiring at the end of Cold Steel 1 having 7 chapters. Well, I guess 6 chapters of school stuff, and then the final chapter being, you know, the end of the game. But I'm glad it was definitely shorter, and obviously Cold Steel 4 and Hajimari will not be in the school setting for the most part, from what I understand. Because, one, Cold Steel 4 is a giant war with everything going around in the country. Just because Osborn wants to control this, like, dark power. And then Hajimari, I have no idea what to expect. But that's more or less everything. I really did enjoy the game quite a bit. The graphical upgrade is insane, and when I look back at Cold Steel 1 and 2 graphics, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna... Because here's the thing. I could definitely go back and replay the Sky games and replay the Crossbell games. You know, like, if we ever got that PS4 collection of the Crossbell games ported over here, I would definitely buy it again and play those again, because I like the chibi models. But now, from Cold Steel 3 to Cold Steel 2, you just look at the graphics, and it's just like, it looks so weird to me now. But who knows, maybe I'll play through them all again, or something. But that's pretty much going to be it from me. So like I said in the beginning, I will be doing a playthrough of Cold Steel 4 in some fashion. I believe the game does come out on October 27th, so I've got a month and a half, basically, to kind of sit on this cliffhanger and lose my mind to it. But let me know what you guys thought of Cold Steel 3 if you did play it. And without spoilers, I guess, tell me what you're most excited to see happen in Cold Steel 4. But that's going to be it, guys. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe more if you're new to the channel. I'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.